Hello, Disney fans! I am so excited right now, and that's for two reasons. The first is it's October, which means it's almost Halloween. There are so many fun ways to celebrate Halloween. You can wear a cool mask like this. I love to get into costume to wear a mask for the holiday. You can carve a jack-o'-lantern. One of my very favorite ways to celebrate it is to watch a Halloween movie. And that brings me to the second reason I'm so excited for this. I'm finally going to get to do a review with my closest friend in the world. She's been my sister in every way that matters for 20 years. And we have a Halloween tradition of watching this movie every year together. I want you to give a warm welcome to my best friend, Rue. Say hi, Rue.
Hello, Disney fans. I am excited to be here with my BFF and sister, April. I am Rue, and I do have a YouTube channel called Rue Likes to Review with the number 2. Happy Halloween! Now let's talk about Hocus Pocus. I used to watch this movie around Halloween when I was younger, and I used to watch it with my younger brother. I know this is a pretty big movie with a cult following. So when I was discussing it with April and she told me she has never seen it, I was shocked. This is such a fun, silly movie, even as an adult.
It really is such a fun movie. And I remember how shocked you were when I told you I'd never seen it. Like, how is that possible that you have never seen this movie? Well, if any of our fellow Disney fans, for whatever reason, have yet to see this, warning for this video, there will be spoilers, but I think that's kind of unavoidable in any review that you're going to have some kind of spoilers going on. So on the off chance you're one of the few who has not seen this, because as my friend and sister said, we do have a huge cult following for this movie. But if you're one of the few who hasn't, spoiler alert, the story starts out with the Sanderson sisters who want to regain their youth by draining it from children. Well, one of the children that they take is Emily Binks, and her older brother Thackeray comes searching for her. Well, he does his best, but up against a bunch of witches, he's not going to do that well. He ends up captured by them, and they transform him into a cat.
Give him fur black as black, just like this.
Thanks, April. Yes, I like this scene because we get to see the witches do their magic. I know that this movie is, well, kid friendly. Not sure if it's kid friendly today, but I really like this scene because we get to see these talented actresses have fun. You can tell by like their faces in this scene that this movie is going to be a great adventure.
You absolutely can tell they had a blast doing this. They've asked them in different interviews, would you sign on for a sequel to this movie? And they were all like, oh, hell yes, when can we start filming? Please, let's do this. They loved it. And that makes a lot of difference in a movie, I think, when you can tell how much the actors are actually enjoying playing the roles. It wasn't just a paycheck for them. This was them celebrating Halloween, basically. And they had phenomenal actresses to play the Sanderson sisters. The youngest is played by Sarah Jessica Parker. That's Sarah Sanderson. The middle sister, Mary, is played by Kathy Najimy. I'm hoping I'm not mangling the pronunciation of her name. You may recognize her from Sister Act. She played one of the nuns in there. And the eldest Sanderson sister, Winnie, is of course played by Bette Midler, who is an absolute legend. She's well known as a singer as well as an actress. If for those of you who aren't as familiar with her, because I don't know how many people my age are, but I mean, she is just brilliant. They know how to bring, the three of them know how to bring fear to the role. I mean, you can get, well, there's no point in this movie that's actually scary, but I mean, you can believe that they're out to hurt somebody. But at the same time, they do the comedy in this, which is what this movie primarily is, the comedy. amazingly well. Like in this scene when they actually end up getting arrested because Thackeray had his friend go get the authorities while he went after his sister. Well, the authorities show up, and the way the Sanderson sisters react is it makes me laugh every time.
Just get your neck out of that twist. We are just three kindly old spinster ladies. But it is quiet evening at home. Sucking the lives out of little children.
This is an old school movie trope. We see the witches, the Saunders sisters, right? Then it cuts to an older woman wearing a witch's costume. Alright, Disney. So the older woman, of course, is a teacher, and she's telling the students the story of the Saunders sisters. Everyone believes her except, of course, our protagonist, Max.
And sisters were hanged by the Salem townfolk. Now there are those who say that on Halloween night a black cat still guards the old Sanderson house.
Max being the only one who doesn't believe doesn't warm him up to his classmates, including Allison, the girl he's interested in. He's living in Salem now, and of course Salem is all about witches. Not only do his beliefs or lack of beliefs get him a few laughs from his classmates, but he ends up running into some not so friendly new people on the way home.
You, Max, just moved here. From where? Los Angeles. LA? Oh, dude. Tubular.
I want to mention this is the first time we see Max get bullied, and I'll have to say, when I was a kid watching this movie, I felt really bad for Max. But now, as an adult watching this movie, the bullies are just so very dumb and funny at the same time. Especially when one of the bullies say tubular. I mean, just by saying tubular really dates this movie. I mean, do people today, if they're watching this movie for the first time, even know what tubular means? And if you don't know what tubular means, it means cool or awesome. And then I also want to mention the bullies. I am Jay, and this is Ernie. I mean, Ice. Ice? Seriously? That's hilarious. Even he has ice shaved in the back of his head. That's so funny. It's just so funny. But you do feel bad for Max because he does lose his shoes. I also want to mention, as an adult watching this movie, I did find a plot hole because we meet Max and he says that him and his family are from LA and they move here. But why do they move here? They never state why or the reason that they're there. So it's just very interesting to think about it that way.
I never thought of that before. Why did they move there? It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it could have had an effect on the plot. Was it part of the dad's job or something? I don't think so. I didn't get that feeling, but it's up for speculation. They seem to know people there because they blend into the party scene in Salem pretty well. We see them at a Halloween party, but yet it doesn't seem like the kids know anyone in Salem, so that's interesting for speculation. The bullies are definitely funny. They are almost as much comedic gold as the Sanderson sisters are. Really, there's different kinds of villains, and they all work in different plots, and they definitely got the villains of the story right for this, where they are just hilarious. These bullies are obviously physically tough, but as you said, not very bright, pretty easy to outwit, and they don't have a huge influence on the plot. The bullies don't, but it might have been interesting to see a little bit more of them. We do see them again later, but might have been fun to see them turn up a couple of times when we don't have the Sanderson sisters around, where they're facing one or the other. I don't know. It depends how they wrote that, but that could have worked. You got some good points on different things that I didn't think about.
If you have younger siblings, then you can relate to this clip between Danny and Max, especially when Danny is being the annoying younger sister. Even more so when at the end she is not getting her way, and who hasn't done this with their siblings as well? To yell, "Mom!" I know I did when I was younger.
It doesn't matter what you say, you're taking me.
Wanna bet?
There's annoying little sisters, and then there's Danny. Anybody who's had younger siblings, if they watch that clip, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I remember times like that." Or if you've been the younger sibling, you'll be like, "Yeah, good times." Well, of course, Danny drags Max out trick or treating with her. That does not go well for Max. They run into the same bullies who stole his shoes before. This time they steal their candy. Danny's response? That he should have died like a man. Gee, thanks, sis, right? Well, it gets even better when the next house they stop at belongs to Max's hopeful girlfriend, Allison. Should an 8-year-old know what yabos are?
Too. Of course, I couldn't wear anything like that because I don't have any. What do you call them, Max? Yabos? Max likes her yabos. In fact, he loves them.
As bad as this is going for Max, he does manage to salvage the situation and tries to look good in front of Allison. Turns out she's very much interested in the Sanderson sisters, and when Danny brings up that they learned about them in school, Allison talks about how her parents used to run the place as a museum before it was closed down. Well, Max gets the bright idea to go there and take a look inside the museum. Well, if you know horror movies, you know that if there's an old legend going around in a certain community, you want to pay attention to what that legend tells you to do or not to do. Well, there was a spell cast by the Sanderson sisters when they were executed. The spell will bring them back on Halloween night during a full moon if the black flame candle is lit. Of course, guess what Max does?
Let's go.
Oh, come on. It's just a bunch of hocus pocus.
Max, I'm not kidding this time. It's time to go. Max, no!
Uh-oh.
Alright, we have finally got to the candle. And how do you think the candle is lighted? By a virgin. Here we go. And who would be the virgin in this kids Disney movie?
What happened?
A virgin lit the candle.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of virgin jokes in this. Are we sure this is a Disney movie? But anyway, of course, now the witches are back, and it's gonna be the three kids who have to stop them. They're going to be joined by Thackeray Binks, who we saw in the beginning. Now, we saw that Binks was cursed to be a cat, but the curse is more than that. He's been cursed to live forever with his guilt of not saving his little sister. He's been guarding the Sanderson estate ever since. Now, it may not seem like that much of a curse to be immortal, but when you think about it, his family's been gone all this time. And his last interaction with them was rubbing against his dad's legs as a cat and not either not able to tell them who he was or not willing? And that's an interesting question.
Away! Away, beast!
Oh, poor Kitty Binks. I'll have to say, he is a cute cat. Unfortunately, he does try to get his dad's attention, but his dad sees him as a cat. We do find out later that Binks can talk. So, what do you think? Do you think it took him 300 years to figure out that he could talk? Or do you think he could always talk?
I actually have a couple different ideas on that. One is that Binks couldn't talk until the black flame candle was lit. That would explain why he only meows around his family back in the 1600s. And yet, there's times when it would have been very handy if he spoke to others the kids are trying to warn and he doesn't. And they never ask him to speak. There's no frustration over why didn't you say something to them. He never implies he won't speak to them, it simply never comes up. So, I guess basically it comes down to movie logic, and they don't want the kids to have adult help. And probably it would have ended the plot a lot sooner if he had spoken to others, but it makes for an interesting unsolved question. Well, now that Biggs clearly is able to speak, whether he could or not before the black flame candle was lit, he helps the kids now. He gets them to a graveyard, which is hallowed ground, and he tells them that the Sanderson sisters cannot come there. That's also where they run into Billy the zombie. And he's an interesting character that we'll get more into later. But they run away from him and they're running around the city trying to get away from the Sanderson sisters. And this leads to the Sanderson sisters pursuing them, of course. And they have a few encounters with modern technology, including a bus.
This part of the movie is definitely for an older audience. The sisters see for the first time a bus. I do like their reactions because they wouldn't really know what a bus is. When the door is open, though, the bus driver sees them and thinks, wow, beautiful women. And he asks them, what do they want? And they say children. And the bus driver says, well, it would take me a few times. Okay, definitely made for adults, but I do like this scene and the reactions to seeing this bus.
Is that?
Hey, it may take me a couple of tries, but I don't think that'd be a problem. Hop on up.
While the witches are going around town looking for the kids decide we need some help. Well, obviously, who's going to be better help than a cop? Right?
I think this scene in the movie is quite funny when they find this cop and they're like, okay, we need to tell this cop what we did. They go over to the cop, they say what happens. Of course, Max says, well, I'm a virgin and I lit the candle. Then the cop is like, are you a virgin? Which is quite funny. Of course, then the cop's like, oh, get out of here, you kids. And then we find out that the cop is fake.
Sidewalk. And he's a virgin.
Are you a virgin?
With the fake cop not going to give them any help, the kids do the next obvious thing. They go to their parents. Well, right now their parents are at a Halloween party, and by this time the Sanderson sisters have figured out what Halloween is like in our time, much different than their own. Well, they learn to play along with that, and this gives us the most fun scene in the entire movie. Even if you have never seen the movie, you know this scene.
Hello, you. And now you go.
They're obviously not getting any help from anybody else. They come up with a really neat plan to take care of things, and they have to go somewhere special to take care of that plan.
What is this place? It reeks of children.
It is a prison for children.
I love this scene. A prison for children? April, isn't that right? So they get this idea to trap the sisters in the kiln in the school and thinking, hey, this is such a great idea, we'll get rid of the witches. I love this scene.
Well, of course, the kids and Binks are all celebrating. Yay, we got rid of the witches. It's over with. We've won. And my first thought when I saw this was, way too easy. It is not over yet. And of course, it is way too easy. They're not getting rid of the witches that quick. Well, they all go home and they take Binks with them and they think, poor Binks, maybe we could find something in the spell book to help him. Big mistake. Turns out the witches survived the fire, and Binks has warned them time and again, do not touch that book. Well, in looking for a spell, they open the book, and it sounds a signal to, hello, I have a guest right now. Her name is Callie. I think you remember from one of my other videos. Come on, Callie. Meow, hey. You want to meet Binks? Yes? Okay, come on, Callie. Hey, come on. Yeah, come on. I know you miss your mama, but you're here. I'm babysitting her for her mom, and she's being a good girl, but she likes to be on screen. Don't you? Yes. Okay, Kelly. Well, the thing is, in trying to help Banks, they lead the witches right to them. And they take Danny. And not only do they take Danny, but the witches cast a spell that brings every other kid in town to them.
I'll have to say, out of all the things they try to get rid of the sisters with or prank them, I think the daylight savings one is the best. That is the most clever in the whole movie, where they take the red over the headlights to make it look like it's daylight savings. That is the best.
Then I know that you don't know.
And what is that?
Daylight savings time.
Daylight savings time.
This is an extremely clever idea, because of course the witches have no idea what daylight savings time is. That idea was invented way after the 1600s. Now, all they have to do, supposedly, is outlast the witches till dawn. Once dawn comes, it's all over with. The witches will die again and everybody's safe. But now, the witches still have everything that they need to continue. They have the potion, they have children. It's not over yet.
This is perfect for that little tow-headed brat.
We have a child.
Here. And look, Winnie, more children are arriving. Come on in.
Winnie, we'll make more potions.
This part of the movie I never really thought about before until April pointed it out. They have all the children in the town go to their home, but they don't choose any of these children to live forever. They choose the other three, which I think is more like revenge because they made them look like real fools.
And that's actually the downfall of a lot of villains, when they could have won the day, but they go for something else out of revenge or greed or pride, and that ends up costing them big time. The children escape to the cemetery, which Binks has told them is hallowed ground, meaning that the witches cannot go there. But somebody else can. And that somebody is Billy. Billy used to be Winnie's boyfriend, but he killed him when he started to show an interest in her sister Sarah. Talk about sibling rivalry. Well, she brings Billy back. I won't say back from the dead because he's still a zombie, but undead. So she makes Billy undead rather than dead. We'll put it that way. And she's counting on him to go after the kids. Did she really think he was going to be on her side? This scene is made even more incredible by the fact that the actor who played Billy really had live moths in his mouth for this. Talk about being a dedicated actor.
Don't come along now. Come on now. Kill him. Do it now.
Wait. Kill him. You buck-toothed mud-riding firefly from hell.
Billy tries to help the kids, even though they are afraid of him at first. Max explains, no, he's not on their side. He's gonna help us. But even with his help, Danny still ends up in Winnie's clutches. Max does what seems like the only thing that he can do to save her.
Now you have no choice.
So you're probably thinking, Max, why don't you just dump the potion out? Instead, he drinks it. But it also shows that Max really does love his little sister and would do anything for her.
I think that was exactly the point. At first it seems like just movie logic, but then you realize how much Max has changed. His relationship with Danny has changed from the start of the movie. At the beginning, he's your typical bratty younger sibling, and he would rather not have anything to do with her. And going through all this, especially all his talks with Binks about relationships with sisters, because Binks loved Emily so much, they remind him how much he loves his little sister. And when she's in danger, he is her big brother and he will protect her, even if it means risking his own life, giving his own life for her. Now, speaking of Binks, luckily, they are able to outlast the witches. The sun comes up, the witches die again, and seems like a happy ending. Not quite, depending on how you look at it. Bittersweet ending's the better word. Binks was injured in the fight, and now his spell, the spell that was cast on him to make him live forever, is broken now that the witches are dead. I don't know if he would have died anyway, but anyway, he does finally die. And of course, Danny grieves over him, but he appears to her in his human form. Which, fun bit of trivia, by the way, the actor who plays his human form is not his voice actor. They picked two different actors for the roles, and I never did find out why. My research couldn't turn up an answer for that. But in any case, he appears to Danny, tells her he'll always be with her, and gets to go on to heaven with Emily. And of course, we do have to have one last virgin joke.
That repeats. What took thee so long?
I'm sorry, Emily. I had to wait 300 years for a virgin to light a candle.
April, are we missing anything? Row, row, row.
I absolutely love that. They just forget the bullies there. They can just be stuck there for who knows how long until they remember them. Well, this is a Halloween movie that you're definitely going to remember. It has so many laughs, so many great moments. I mean, there's a lot of my favorite clips that we couldn't include just because this video would go on forever otherwise. This movie's packed with wonderful, memorable moments, and I'm really sure that if you haven't already seen it, if you do see it, you're gonna love this one. From Rue and I, have a happy Halloween, and until next time, remember the magic.